Good morning. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about Matrix movie metaphors. So the movie The Matrix was a movie released, great evidence that we have light workers working in Hollywood that are trying to have a large effect on a large amount of people. This is wonderful. The movie The Matrix. Okay, so its beginning premise is that we are basically all asleep and that there is little echoes of reality that can kind of catch our interest. We don't know why they interest us, but there's these little echoes of greater reality that we know are more true, that don't make sense. They don't make sense based on what we're told, based on what we see and experience every day, because what we see and experience every day is the Matrix. It has been programmed to a finite detail so that we're seeing it and experiencing it everywhere. But so the opening premise of the movie and our reality is that we're all asleep and we have little whisperings. We're online and we read something profound, or someone says something profound, or we have a thought or a feeling that doesn't make sense. We see a bunch of synchronicities that don't make sense based on standardized logic. So we know that there's more. So this is the beginning of the movie, and this is the beginning of awakening. We decide that there's more, and we decide we want to know more. We sustain curiosity. This is the first step to stepping out of the Matrix, as we no longer succumb to FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. This is weaponized in the financial sector to manipulate stock market prices. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt is what we move away from onto curiosity. There's no need to be afraid and uncertain and doubtful. We don't have to say, oh, that person's crazy, I'm doubting what they're saying, I'm fearful of learning from them. We can just say, I'm curious. And, maybe some of what someone who's not fully grounded is maybe saying some things that aren't fully accurate. Maybe they don't have the clearest picture, but they're probably referring to a lot of truthful things. Even when someone is being very manipulative and not trying to convey any truth, they're probably going to end up conveying some truths, because the nature of reality is that truth emerges. So if someone points out the false aspect of something but has to describe enough of the whole picture to be able to point out the negative aspect of it, we might be able to just see the positive aspect of it. So if people tell us to just it's not cool to go outside of the social norms, we can say, oh, okay, so there are social norms, and these are artificial constructs that everybody's following. No one knows why they're following them. They don't seem to be based on morality or intelligence or progression of culture. They just seem to be, derogatory for the most part, or expected and consumed and not questioned. So these little mannerisms, when people say, how is your day? When people ask you, how are you, how long were you sick for? What did you get sick with? Like, these are the kinds of questions that perpetuate dis-ease. We can just be switching our whole vocabulary to saying, good morning, I hope you have a wonderful day, what do you want to do that's interesting today? We can just basically switch it up, or say, what are your favorite immune building recipes, or what do you find that's really effective for your health? We don't even need to focus on the darkness, because the Matrix is going to try to get us to focus on the darkness all the time and keep us in this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, where we're not questioning anything, we're too afraid, we think we're being told we're smart for not questioning things. We're so smart we don't have to know. We're so smart we don't have to learn or be curious. So we absolutely want to be curious about everything, unless it's the darkness. This is how we escape the Matrix. We shut off our curiosity about the darkness. We're just not interested anymore. We're bombarded with darkness all the time in our media and in our culture, and we move on to what we want to create. So another big premise of the movie is that everybody is sleeping, and they're sleeping within a giant machine that's harvesting our life energy. This is, again, a great example of the Matrix. All of these little social mannerisms and cultural things that I was talking about, they exist in every modernized culture, because they are the people who are in control want to be in control because they want it the most, and they try the hardest to get to be in control of other people. They have the inability to have control over themselves, meaning they don't have a way to find happiness within themselves, so they're forever seeking externally for happiness. They never actually find it, but they think they find it through controlling others. They experience joy in the suffering of others because they have abandoned trying to find joy for themselves. This is the example of the lizard brain, of the false ascension, the dark path to enlightenment. These are people who take one step towards enlightenment to expand their consciousness to find out how to control other people, and then don't take another step to figure out how to control themselves, or another step to figure out what the heart means, or another step to figure out how to actively use the third eye for its higher functioning and not just its very limited function, and then open up to actual, the astral wisdom. Marcus Aurelius talks about the fact that, our soul is infinite. Our access to information is the cosmos. It's not here in our mind or in our body. Anyways, so we're all hooked up to these machines, and when we wake up, when we take the red pill and we wake up, we witness this. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, wow, my teachers, my friends, my family, everyone that I know is being really mean to me and attacking me all the time based on my new perception of reality. I've woken up, I've torn these tubes out of me that are, force-feeding me information and are siphoning the life off of me, and I reject that. I'm tearing that stuff out of me. I'm getting out of it. I'm coughing out the plasm. I'm waking up and being born. This is having an awakening, is being born again. I know there's the concept of born again Christians. They're referring to this fact that we are literally born again. It's in the Bible. To be consciously present in this lifetime, in any lifetime, we need to be birthed a second time, because our physical body birthing is not our consciousness birthing. We haven't made enough of the connections between being embodied in this world and who our source code is. We haven't made that connection yet, so we have to have a second birth where we forget all the matrix programming, remember who we really are, and just wake up and say, oh yeah, this is me. What I'm told is me is not me. It's definitely not me. I am my own source code, and the infinite wisdom of the universe supports me. And the more I open, and the more I'm curious, and the more I study, the more the infinite knowledge of the universe will flood into me, because it's there and wants to flood into it. We just have to make space for it. So the way we sustain an awakening, this is the biggest thing, is the darkness loves to capture people when they are starting to awaken and enslave them again. So as soon as you awaken and start to have these revelations, I'm sure people, both dark whisperings inside of you and people externally, will start trying to get you to conform again. They'll say, oh, well, you had this awakening, but did you know this, this, and this? Did you know you're limited in this way? So any form of limitation on an expansion of consciousness is control, is false. We want to be responsible for our own direction, which means we choose not to focus on the darkness. We choose not to perpetuate dis-ease. We choose to expand our consciousness and focus on healing and the light. And we do this by continually practicing and creating boundaries. So we create boundaries with ourselves, not to go into the darkness like we used to, not to be morbidly curious, not to watch horror movies, not to watch violent thrillers, because these things implant our consciousness in a very deep way. We refuse to do these things anymore. We also create new, identify reasons for and create new boundaries with other people. If people are obsessively asking about our health, this is again another slave matrix tool to keep people focused on negative health, because negative health doesn't really exist. It's a weakness of consciousness. The human body does not actually get sick unless the human consciousness allows it, and for the most part, our health and our immune system is unconscious. So the more we can bring our consciousness to our immune system, to our soul and our spirit, our relationship with ourself, the more we realize we don't ever have to get sick, and that getting sick is optional. And we might experience some symptoms of our body being taxed. We might feel a little bit of a fever. We might feel some forms of dis-ease. But the quote-unquote succumbing to an external force or an internal imbalance to quote-unquote get sick is an artificial concept that has essentially been programmed into us. Or if we remain unconscious, can happen to us because we are not present within ourselves to prevent it from happening. But once we step up into the full nature of our consciousness and become aware of what our immune system is and how we affect our immune system with our feelings, with what we perpetuate, and how we react to ourselves and others, and the choices we make, if we're feeling a little off and we go home and we decide, I'm going to take a hot shower and start drinking some more water instead of going home and starting to eat and watch media, this is telling ourselves, I'm not going to get sick, I'm going to take care of this right now. Or perhaps we're so busy we don't even have time to do any of that stuff, we have to get back and start working right again. So as soon as we transition, we have a moment to ourselves and we get home, we say, okay, I feel these forms of dis-ease, I feel these forms of strain, I recognize that I'm under a lot of strain right now, and I'm feeling a lot of symptoms right now, I'm recognizing all these these factors, but I refuse to get sick. I'm not going to get sick right now. I'm going to experience these things. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm not going to give into it. I have held off what felt like a really intense dis-ease for a matter of weeks. I was traveling, and I just kept every night and every morning, I told myself, I absolutely cannot get sick. I don't care how bad a sore throat I have, how dehydrated I have, how much of a headache I have. This is all going to evaporate into a very minor, finite experience, and I'm not actually going to get any worse. I'm not going to develop any kind of symptoms that are going to prevent me from experiencing this travel. And it worked. It was agonizing. Like, I experienced a lot of symptoms, and I was using essential oils and drinking as much tea as I could, but I never actually succumbed. I was able to be fully functional and make a lot of important decisions and soak up a lot of information because I absolutely refused to get sick. So again, what we tell ourselves is true if we can learn how to make it true. This is what yoga is all about, is studying the different aspects of what it means to be and how to get better at them. So there's a yoga of sleeping, there's a yoga of meditation, there's a yoga of memory, there's physical asana yoga, there are yoga of expanding consciousness, yoga of dream work. There's just so many different varieties of yoga that are all about striving for increased consciousness within a certain realm in particular. So escaping the matrix. I just have a few more minutes right now. I'll have to finish up with a second part of this. So escaping the matrix, calling things out, calling the matrix out in a way that's not going to trigger more of the matrix, but is also going to say to ourselves and the world firmly, I no longer tolerate this. I set boundaries. I no longer tolerate this. People might think that I'm being an aggressor because I'm setting boundaries, and people aren't used to having boundaries. And to them, it feels like something is being taken away or enforced upon them. But boundaries are really healthy. And once we all learn how to set really healthy boundaries with each other, we're all taking the first step. I mean, eventually, when we're all in a fifth dimensional heart space consciousness, boundaries will be set collectively. We will agree upon the rules and the boundaries. And when someone breaks one of these rules or boundaries, we'll have a lot of compassion and empathy, and we'll figure out why, and we'll figure out how to guide each other back to this empathy point, back to this mutual boundary state, because it's what we all want. We don't want someone slipping out and having their needs feel like they're unmet and can't be met. We don't want anyone to feel like this ever. So we'll eventually be on the other side of this. Instead of having to put up shields, we will be inviting people to state what they need so that they can drop their shields. This is a higher state of consciousness. This paves the way to creating the ultimate reality. Can you imagine? We can all imagine this right now, when we're all in a state where we're having all of our needs met and we're all supportive and encouraging of others, because we're all creating great things that are contributing to society, and we all want to receive great things that are being contributed to society. This isn't that much of a stretch of the imagination. This is just a matter of deprogramming all the toxic mentality from the matrix that tells us we can't do that, that tells us we need slave masters to tell us what we can and can't do, and when we can and when we can't do it, and what the rules are and what the punishments are, and what the system is. Can you imagine if a bank's primary focus was not to increase money, but was to figure out the most effective way to use money to create the greatest amount of good, and helped people facilitate their dreams and their efforts into creating tangible reality? What if a bank's sole purpose was to vision and create software to create dreams into reality? We can do this. This isn't, economics is an open book. What we practice in terms of modern economics is less than 1% of even the basic ideas of what economics can be. Less than 1%. We're in such a finite economic model that it doesn't represent economics as a whole in any way. It represents a slavery aspect of economy. We haven't even moved out of the slavery aspect of economy to a true form of economy yet. We experience tiny bits of a true form of economy when we give each other a gift, when we see a need and we supply that need without expectation or a return. When I see that I can give someone a hug, a 2-minute shoulder rub, or a word of encouragement, I am participating in an economy that is not based on slavery. When I am using dollars to buy goods and services, I am participating in a slavery economy. Unfortunately, it's what we have and what we're working with, so we don't want to knock it. We want to infuse it with a higher higher energy. This means I gladly give for services I benefit from, and I don't feel hesitant or resentful. I am thankful. I am especially thankful when I can get my needs met in a big way for not a great economic concern, and I'm very thankful, and I try to be considerate of the whole impact it has on the world. So even if we're in a modern world that are getting valuable things at cheap prices at the expense of others, I just try to take a moment and say, hey, the world sucks right now, and I'm very happy that I'm able to get this for myself, and I know there's a lot of people that don't have access to this, and I might be even benefiting because of the cruel system from someone else's labors that I am not able to compensate. So I don't feel great about benefiting from having a product that's so cheap that someone else can't really make a living or survive healthily. But all it can do at this point is recognize this and say, okay, I'm going to make the best of what I can do. I'm going to send out the love vibes, and I'm going to seek alternate solutions. All right, that has been part 1 of Matrix Movie Metaphors. Hope you have a wonderful morning.